There is something about you that the universe refuses to let die. Think about that for a moment. Not just the hardships you have survived, but the specific, relentless, almost supernatural pattern of pressure that has followed you throughout your life. Most people experience difficulty, but what happened to you was different. What came for you was not ordinary. The storms that moved through your life were not random weather patterns, they were tests, calibrations, and initiations that most human beings will never be asked to endure. And yet here you are, breathing, thinking, watching this video, still standing on the other side of everything that was designed. It seems to completely and utterly break you. That is not luck. That is not coincidence. That is not simply resilience in the clinical, psychological sense of the word. What you are witnessing in your own survival is something far older, far deeper, and far more sacred than any modern language has a perfect word for. You are witnessing the evidence of your calling. You are seeing, perhaps for the first time with clear eyes, the unmistakable fingerprint of a purpose so large that the universe had to make sure you were strong enough to carry it before it revealed it to you. Let us start at the very beginning, not the beginning of your pain, but the beginning of your nature. Because long before the trials came, before the people who doubted you, before the seasons of isolation and confusion and loss, there was something already written into the fabric of who you are. There are people in this world who move through life relatively smoothly. Things align for them with modest effort. Doors open without much resistance. Relationships form without great drama. Their paths, while not without its bumps, tends to follow a recognizable, predictable arc. And then there are people like you, people for whom life seemed to arrive like a furnace from the very start. People who were misunderstood before they even had the language to explain themselves. People who were too sensitive, too aware, too different, who felt things at a frequency that others around them simply could not tune into. People who looked around at their environment early in life and thought, quietly, desperately, sometimes agonizingly, I do not belong here. I do not fit. Something about me does not match this place. And if that has been your experience, if that quiet, persistent sense of not quite fitting has followed you, I want you to understand something that may shift your entire framework. That feeling was never a flaw. It was a signal. It was the first whisper of your purpose letting you know that you were built for something beyond the ordinary map. The chosen ones, and I use that phrase not to inflate ego or encourage a sense of superiority, but to describe a very real spiritual archetype that appears across every culture, every tradition, every mythology humanity has ever produced. The chosen ones are always, without exception, shaped through suffering before they are handed their power. This is not a cruel accident of fate. This is not the universe being indifferent or sadistic. This is a fundamental law of spiritual and energetic mechanics. You cannot give an extraordinary instrument to an ordinary hand. You cannot place a vast, world-altering gift inside a vessel that has not been made large enough to hold it. The potter does not skip the fire. The sword is not sharp without the grinding. The diamond is not brilliant without the crushing pressure of the earth. And you, specifically, with the exact texture and weight of everything you have been through, you have been inside the fire, the grinding, and the pressure for longer than you perhaps ever thought you could bear. And the universe watched, and waited, and knew, because it always knows the difference between someone who is being broken and someone who is being built. Think about the moments that were supposed to end you. I am not asking you to revisit trauma carelessly. I am asking you to look at those moments with a new lens, because the lens changes everything. There were seasons in your life when the ground beneath you simply gave way, relationships that dissolved, opportunities that collapsed, identities you had built that were stripped from you, health challenges, financial devastation, betrayal from people you trusted completely. The specific details vary from person to person, but the pattern is strikingly consistent among those who carry a larger calling. The rug gets pulled repeatedly, often just when things seem to be stabilizing, and you probably asked, at some point, the question that every person on this path eventually asks, why me? You looked around at others who seemed to coast, who seemed untouched, who seemed to accumulate blessings with ease, and you wondered what you had done wrong, what was broken inside you, why the universe seemed to have singled you out for difficulty. But here's the reorientation that changes the entire story. You were not singled out for punishment. You were singled out for preparation. The difference between those two interpretations is the difference between a life lived in bitterness and a life lived in power. There is an ancient idea present in nearly every spiritual tradition on earth that the people who are called to do the most significant work must first be emptied, not filled. Emptied. Because you cannot pour the new wine into old containers. You cannot move at the frequency of your true purpose while you are still clinging to the identity, the beliefs, the relationships, and the patterns that belong to the version of you that existed before the calling. And so the universe empties you. It strips away what does not serve the mission. It removes the people who cannot go where you are going. It dismantles the structures that were too small to hold what you are becoming. It creates, through what feels like destruction, the necessary spaciousness for the real work to begin. This is why so many of the people who have gone on to do genuinely transformative work in art, in leadership, in healing, in innovation, in spiritual service went through periods of their lives that looked, from the outside, like complete collapse. The collapsing was the clearing, the loss was the liberation, the ending was the beginning, wearing a very convincing disguise. I want to talk about the loneliness, because if you are on this path, you know it intimately. The kind of loneliness that is not simply about being alone, because many people on this path are surrounded by others and still feel it acutely. It is a deeper loneliness, a loneliness of frequency. A loneliness that comes from operating at a level of awareness, sensitivity, and perception that the people immediately around you simply do not share. You have tried to explain how you see things, what you feel, what you sense about the nature of reality, and human behavior and the deeper patterns beneath the surface of events, and you have watched people's eyes glaze over, or you have watched them laugh nervously, or you have been told that you are too intense, too deep, too much, and so you learned to edit yourself, to compress your vastness into a shape that would make others comfortable, to perform a version of ordinariness that kept the peace but slowly, quietly starved the truest part of you. That editing, that compression, that performance of smallness, that is one of the heaviest prices the chosen pay before they step into their full expression, because the world will not accommodate your magnitude until you stop apologizing for it. The spiritual traditions call this the dark night of the soul, and it is not a metaphor, it is a genuine initiatory experience that arrives for those who are being called to a higher level of consciousness and service. It is the period in which everything you thought you were, everything you thought you wanted, every identity and goal and relationship that gave your life its sense of shape and direction, all of it falls away or is forcibly removed, and you are left in a darkness that is unlike any darkness you have experienced before. Not the darkness of depression, though it can look similar from the outside. Not the darkness of failure, though failure is often present. It is a spiritual darkness, a period of profound unknowing, in which the old self has dissolved, and the new self has not yet fully arrived. You are suspended between who you were and who you are becoming, and in that suspension, the silence is enormous, the uncertainty is absolute, the temptation to clutch at old familiar patterns, old relationships, old habits, old identities is overwhelming. But those who move through the dark night without retreating to the familiar, those who have the courage to remain in the dissolution until the new form emerges, those are the ones who come out the other side carrying something the world desperately needs. Let me speak directly to the people who were told they were too sensitive, because sensitivity is one of the primary markers of this path, and it has been systematically weaponized against those who carry it. From the earliest age, many of you were told that your emotional depth was a liability, that crying was weakness, that feeling things so acutely was a problem to be managed, a symptom to be treated, a flaw to be corrected. You were handed the language of pathology for what was actually a gift of perception. Your sensitivity was not a wound, it was a form of intelligence, the ability to feel deeply, to perceive subtlety, to sense what others cannot see, to be moved by beauty and devastated by cruelty. These are not the characteristics of a broken person. These are the characteristics of someone built for empathy, for healing, for creative vision, for spiritual insight, for leadership that comes from genuine understanding rather than performance. The world told you your sensitivity made you weak. The truth is that your sensitivity is the very thing that will make your work undeniable, because people can feel authenticity. People can sense when someone truly understands suffering and joy, when someone has walked through darkness and come back with something real. Your sensitivity is your credibility. Guard it, honor it, never let anyone talk you out of it again. Now I want to talk about the people who tried to destroy you, not to encourage bitterness. but because understanding their role in your story is part of understanding the completeness of your path. There were people who came into your life who seemed, almost immediately, to sense something in you that threatened them. People who moved to diminish you, to undermine your confidence, to rewrite your narrative in ways that kept you small and manageable and useful to their own purposes. There were those who betrayed your trust at the precise moment when your trust was most vulnerable. There were those who tried to convince you that the voice inside you, the one that kept insisting you were made for something larger, was arrogance, delusion, grandiosity. There were those who systematically chipped away at your sense of self-worth, your sense of vision, your sense of the possible. And I want to say this very carefully and very clearly. Those people could not do it. They tried. Some of them tried for years. Some of them had enormous amounts of power over your circumstances. Some of them had access to your most undefended parts, and still they could not finish the job. You are here. You survived every single one of them, not because you were lucky, because something in you is indestructible. That indestructibility is not arrogance. Please hear me on this. I am not telling you that you are special in a way that diminishes others or places you above anyone. I am telling you that there is something specific to your design, something coded into your very essence, that was never going to allow these forces to have the final word. There is a protection around those who carry a genuine calling that operates at a level beyond ordinary human logic. It looks like coincidence from the outside. It looks like luck or timing or fortunate circumstance. But from the inside, and you know this, somewhere in a place that has no name, it feels like something else. It feels like an invisible hand that moved things, redirected you, held a door open when all other doors had closed, sent exactly the right person at exactly the right moment, or perhaps most mysteriously kept you from destroying yourself in the moments when you were most tempted to do exactly that. That protection is real. It is not your imagination. It is the universe's investment in your purpose, showing up as preservation. You were kept for a reason, and the reason is beginning to make itself known. Let us talk about the theme of isolation, because it is one of the most consistent and least discussed aspects of the chosen one's journey. There comes a time, often more than once, when the path requires you to be alone. Not alone in the self-pitying sense. Not alone because you are unloved or unlovable, but alone in the sacred sense, alone in the desert, alone in the wilderness, alone in the silence between the old life and the new. Every major figure in the mythological and spiritual canon of human history went through this. Moses in the wilderness, Jesus in the desert, Buddha under the Bodhi tree, the great Sufi mystics in their seclusion, the shamans in their vision quests, the heroes in their caves before they returned with a gift. This is not coincidence, it is pattern. It is the structure of the initiation. The aloneness is not punishment. It is the necessary condition for the kind of deep internal reckoning, healing, and transformation that cannot happen inside the noise of ordinary life. In the silence of your isolation, something is being integrated. Something is being consolidated. The fragments of your experience are being woven, slowly and sometimes painfully, into a coherence that will eventually become your gift to the world. And speaking of gifts, I want to address something that many people on this path carry as a deep confusion or even a source of shame: the gifts themselves. Because the gifts that come with this kind of calling are almost always double-edged. The same depth of feeling that makes you an extraordinary healer also makes ordinary human interaction exhausting. The same visionary capacity that allows you to see what others cannot also makes you feel perpetually out of sync with the present moment. The same empathy that enables you to understand and hold space for human complexity also makes you a target for those who seek to exploit boundaryless caring. The same creative fire that produces extraordinary work also burns hot enough to consume you if you do not learn to channel it wisely. You were given a powerful instrument to play, and no one gave you the manual. And for much of your life, you have been learning through trial and error, through crisis and recovery, through devastation and rebuilding, how to be in a right relationship with what you carry. That learning process was not wasted time. It was the education that the mission required. There is a difference, and this distinction is crucial, between carrying a large purpose and having a large ego. The chosen one archetype has been badly distorted in popular culture, co-opted by narcissism and grandiosity, used as a self-justifying narrative by people who simply do not want to be accountable to others. I want to be very clear. The genuine calling is never about being above others. It is about being in deeper service to others. The person who is genuinely called to do significant work in the world is almost always characterized by profound humility, not performed humility, but the real kind that comes from having been so thoroughly broken, so completely humbled, so deeply aware of their own darkness and limitation, that there is simply no room left for the kind of arrogance that places itself above the human family. The calling does not elevate you over people. It draws you closer to them. It makes you more available, more compassionate, more genuinely useful, because you have walked through enough of the fire to understand the fire. And that understanding is what makes the help real. I want to speak to the theme of timing, because it is one of the places where those on this path suffer the most unnecessary pain. Human beings have a very specific and largely unconscious relationship with time. We want things to happen on the schedule that our ego has determined is appropriate, reasonable, and overdue. And when things do not happen on that schedule, when the breakthrough does not arrive, when the recognition does not come, when the alignment you can feel just over the horizon remains just over the horizon, the temptation to conclude that you have been all, that the calling was an illusion, that the purpose was a fantasy, becomes almost overwhelming. But divine timing, and again, I use that phrase not as a religious doctrine, but as a description of how transformation actually operates, does not run on human schedules. The preparation takes as long as the preparation takes. Then folding happens. when all the necessary conditions have been met and not one moment before. Every delay that frustrated you was preparation. Every setback that felt like defeat was redirection. Every season of waiting was the universe arranging circumstances, clearing paths, preparing people and places and conditions that your purpose required, things you could not see, could not orchestrate, could not rush into readiness. Trust the timing, not passively, not as an excuse for inaction, but as the active, engaged, faithful trust of someone who knows that the work is real and the alignment is coming. Let me also speak about the body, because spiritual callings are carried in physical form, and the body often bears the evidence of the journey in ways that are worth acknowledging. Many of the people on this path have experienced significant physical challenges, chronic illness, exhaustion, mysterious symptoms, the body's repeated demands to slow down, to stop, to attend to something deeper. This is not weakness. It is often the physical expression of a necessary clearing, or the body's intelligent response to energies and frequencies that are larger than the nervous system has yet learned to handle. Oh, the body of the one who carries a large calling often has to be recalibrated, upgraded, expanded, and that process is rarely comfortable. If you have fought your body, resented your body, felt betrayed by your body, I invite you to consider that your body has been doing something extraordinary this entire time. It has been processing, integrating, and transmuting experiences and energies that would have broken a less resilient physical form. Your body is not failing you. It is changing you. Honor it. Care for it. Listen to it. It is the sacred instrument through which the calling will be expressed in the physical world. Now I want to talk about what comes next, because this video is not about looking backward at the suffering. It is about recognizing where you stand right now, in this moment, having survived everything that was sent to stop you. Because there is a particular quality of person who arrives at this point in the journey who has been through the fire and the darkness and the isolation and the dismantling, and it is a quality that cannot be faked, cannot be manufactured, cannot be learned from a book or downloaded from a course. It is the quality of someone who has been proven to the universe, proven to themselves, proven in the ways that actually matter to be capable of carrying what they have been given. You have been tested, not once, repeatedly. You have been brought to your absolute edge and discovered that even at the edge, even in the moments when you were certain you could not go on, something in you refused to surrender the essential thing. That refusal, that bedrock, irreducible, unkillable core is the foundation upon which the next chapter of your life will be built. And the next chapter is different in quality, in alignment, in resonance, different in the way that only earned things can be different. The question that naturally arises at this point in the journey is, how do I step into what I am called to do? How do I move from the preparation phase into the expression phase? And the answer is both simpler and more radical than most people expect. You begin by stopping the performance of who you are not. All those years of editing yourself, of making yourself smaller, quieter, more palatable, more ordinary that editing phase is over. The people you needed to manage through that performance are either no longer in your life or they are about to fall away. The relationships, environments, and structures that required you to diminish yourself in order to maintain them were never aligned with your true purpose, and their falling away, as painful as it has been or will be, is a necessary feature of the emergence, not a tragedy. You begin by letting the real version of you, the one that has been developing in secret, in the dark, in the silence, begin to breathe and move and express itself without apology and without the constant surveillance of self-censorship. This is terrifying. It is also the most important and liberating thing you will ever do. There is a concept in spiritual traditions that is sometimes called the return of the hero, the moment in the mythological journey when the one who has descended into the underworld, faced the trials, and undergone the transformation, returns to the community bearing the gift that only the journey could produce. The return is not a triumphant parade. It is not a moment of arriving at perfection or completion. It is a moment of choosing to offer what you have become and what you have learned to the people and the world that need it. The gift of the returned hero is not money or fame or status. It is wisdom, embodied wisdom, the kind of understanding that can only be earned through genuine suffering and genuine transformation. Your willingness to have gone through what you have gone through, to have stayed on the path even when the path seemed to have vanished entirely, to have refused to give up even when giving up seemed like the only rational option. That willingness has produced something in you that is genuinely rare and genuinely needed. The world is not short on talent. It is not short on intelligence or skill or ambition. What it is short on is people who have been through the fire and come back with something true. You are one of those people. The time for hiding what you have become is ending. I want to address the fear directly. Because it is present, it is always present at this threshold. The fear of being seen, the fear of claiming the calling too loudly and being wrong, the fear of stepping into the fullness of who you are and being met with rejection or ridicule or the particular cruelty that the world sometimes reserves for those who dare to be exactly what they are. After years of learning to make yourself small in order to survive, the idea of finally making yourself large fully, unapologetically, authentically large is genuinely frightening, and I will not insult that fear by telling you it has no basis. There will be people who are threatened by your emergence. There will be those who prefer the edited, diminished version of you that was easier to dismiss. There will be moments when the vulnerability of full self-expression will feel dangerous in ways that are visceral and real. But here is what I know, and what you on some level already know. The cost of continuing to be small is higher than the cost of the risk of being fully visible. The cost to your soul, your health, your creativity, your relationships, your peace, the ongoing cost of being less than you are is a price you have already been paying for too long, and the payments are getting more expensive, not less. There is a beautiful paradox at the heart of the chosen one's journey, and it is this: the very thing that made you feel most cursed is the thing that makes you most qualified. The breakdown that you thought had disqualified you from anything meaningful, the addiction, the failure, the mental health crisis, the shameful chapter, the years lost in darkness, that is not the obstacle to your purpose. That is the curriculum. That is the precise content of the education that your purpose required, because the people you will serve, the ones who will be changed by what you carry, they are not looking for someone who has never struggled. They are looking for someone who has struggled and survived and found a way through and can show them that it is possible. Your mess is your message. Your wound is your wisdom. Your darkest chapter is the one that will create the most light when you allow it to be part of what you offer. This is not a comfortable truth. The idea that our worst moments are actually our greatest qualifications can feel deeply counterintuitive, but it is one of the most consistently verified truths of human spiritual experience across every culture and every era. Let me speak for a moment about the people who are supposed to find you, because they are out there. And they are waiting, not in a passive way, but in the way that people who are desperate for something real and true are always waiting for the person or the work or the message that finally meets them where they actually are. There are people in the world right now, perhaps thousands of them, perhaps more, who are living in the exact kind of darkness that you survived, who are asking the exact questions you once asked, who are in the exact season of dissolution and confusion and desperate longing for a signal that it is survivable, that there is something on the other side, that the suffering is not meaningless, and you specifically, you, with your specific experience and your specific survival, and your specific brand of hard-won understanding, you are the signal they need. Not a perfect signal, not a polished, sanitized, all answers provided signal, but an honest one, a real one, the kind that only comes from someone who has actually been there. Every day that you delay the full expression of your calling is a day that those people go without the help that only you can provide. That is not pressure, that is purpose. Feel the difference. As we move toward the closing of this message, I want to acknowledge something that rarely gets said plainly in the kind of content that occupies this space. This path is genuinely hard, and you are allowed to acknowledge that without diminishing the beauty of it. The chosen one's journey is not a comfortable life. It is a full life, a rich life, a deeply meaningful life, but it is not a life that trades in comfort or safety or the approval of the mainstream. There will continue to be seasons that test you. There will continue to be moments of doubt so complete that the certainty you feel now will seem like a distant memory. There will continue to be people who do not understand you, do not value what you carry, do not see what you see, and you will continue because the alternative to continuing is not available to someone built the way you are built. You were not made to stop. You were not made to settle. You were not made to disappear into a life that is smaller than your soul. You were made for this, for the full, demanding, extraordinary, sometimes agonizing, ultimately glorious project of becoming who you were always meant to be and doing what you were always meant to do. That is not inspirational hyperbole. That is the literal description of your situation. The title of this video says it plainly. They could not destroy you. And it shows in the way you are still here, still searching, still hungry for understanding and meaning and the fullness of your own becoming. It shows in the fact that after everything, after all of the loss and the betrayal and the confusion and the long, dark seasons of not knowing, you are still oriented toward the light, still asking the real questions, still listening for the signal beneath the noise. That orientation is not something that can be taught or manufactured or performed. It is something that exists in a person who has a genuine calling, a genuine purpose, a genuine reason for being here that goes beyond their own comfort or survival. You have that. You have always had it. The trials were never able to take it from you, not because they did not try, but because it is not the kind of thing that can be taken. It is not stored in the circumstances. It is stored in the deepest architecture of who you are. And no external force, no person, no failure, no loss, no darkness, no amount of time or pressure has access to that place. It is yours. It has always been yours. And now, finally, it is time to let it lead. Go forward, not perfectly. There is no perfect forward on this path. Not without fear. The fear will come, and you will move anyway. Not without doubt. The doubt is part of the texture of the honest journey. But go forward with the knowledge that you have been proven, that you have been prepared, that the very fact of your survival, the fact that you are here, having endured everything that was sent to stop you, is itself the loudest argument that what you carry is real, that what you are meant to do matters, and that the universe, having invested this much in your preparation, has absolutely no intention of abandoning you now. The path ahead is not without its challenges, but you have already proven something extraordinary, that you can handle the challenges, that you were built for them, that the furnace did not consume you, it refined you, and what has been refined is now ready. You are ready, not in spite of everything you have been through, because of it, every single piece of it. Step forward into the fullness of who you are. The world has been waiting long enough, and so, somewhere deep and true and undestroyable inside you, have you? The wound is the place where the light enters you. Rumi,